Hello, everybody. Welcome into Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. We've got a big show for you today. We're going to break down NBA Game 1. The playoffs are underway. All 8 series have had their first matchup go through. We'll talk about what the big takeaways are from each series, have a little bit of overreactions in there, and what the rest of the NBA playoffs might look like. We're also going to talk a little bit about the NFL draft. There was a big trade today involving a quarterback and a quarterback-needy team. So we'll talk about the fallout of that, and we'll end our show talking a little bit about baseball. There's been a rookie on the Washington Nationals who has set the league on fire in his first 2 starts. We'll talk about them. We'll talk about the Phillies and their pitching. All of that in segment before. But before we get into all of that, remember that if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Leave a tip or donation at that website. You can leave a message on there. It'll show up on the bottom of the screen here for you, me, and everybody else watching around the world to see. We'll have a little discussion about what you had to say. You can control what we talk about here on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. All you need to do is go to the link on the screen right now. That's gsmcpodcast.net. We appreciate anything that you do give, and we appreciate you all for tuning in and listening. But like I was saying, we're going to start off our show today with the Western Conference. And what a better place to start in the NBA than the Los Angeles Lakers. The Lakers took on the Denver Nuggets for the second time in 2 seasons. The Nuggets and the Lakers matched up in the Western Conference Finals of last season's NBA playoffs, where the Lakers got their behinds thoroughly handed to them. They didn't really have much of a chance. LeBron James was doing all he could. There wasn't a super healthy Anthony Davis, and they ran into the eventual NBA champions and Nikola Jokic on a tear. It didn't go very well last season. And Game 1 of the series this year doesn't seem to be changing all that much. Jokic still had an incredible game going up against Anthony Davis. LeBron James and the rest of that Lakers squad. LeBron James is willing that team to a close game. It was a close game until Denver was able to pull away. They're able to stay in it. They're just such a cool-headed team. They are able to come back from any kind of adversity, like the kind that they faced in the third quarter of that last game when the Lakers kind of mounted a little bit of a comeback. They weathered that storm. They had a great fourth quarter and were able to shut the Lakers down. You know, outside of LeBron, outside of Anthony Davis, the Lakers needed bigger performances out of some of their guys. You know, D'Angelo Russell needed to be more than he was. Austin Reeves needed to be more than he was. Those two combined for about 30 points. And it just wasn't enough to take down the Nuggets. The Nuggets, I just think, are a straight-up better team than the Lakers are, and as much as LeBron James can will this series to be competitive, and he can steal a game. I expect him to absolutely steal a game, take at least one, maybe Game 2 at home, maybe Game 4 on the road. It's going to be a lot tougher to take one in Denver if you're the Lakers than it is going to be to take one right now. But we take a look at the way this series has gone so far. It's just, it doesn't look too good. And they'll play again soon. I believe they play again tomorrow. So we have now a lot. We have now just a little more information to look forward to in these series. Like I said, it wasn't really that big of a contest. It was a closer game than a lot of the other ones over the weekend. It only being an 11-point game, but and really just that was the difference. They were able to dominate in that third quarter, and the Lakers just did not have an answer for Nikola Jokic. It's hard to have an answer for a guy like Nikola Jokic, dropping 30-point double-doubles. Anthony Davis matched him board for board, point for point. It just wasn't enough, and I feel like it's going to be that way for the entire series. The Nuggets just are going to be able to weather the storm, and just pull ahead because they're deeper than the Lakers are. Once Anthony Davis and LeBron James leave the court, the Lakers just don't have an answer for the Nuggets, and Nikola Jokic especially. So it's going to be real tough for them to win this series. I expect them to take a game. But taking a look at this series to start it off with, the Lakers just aren't quite going to be able to get it done, in my opinion. The other Western Conference game that happened on Saturday, the Timberwolves took on the Suns in what this whole series is just who's going to be better, your offense or my defense. And it was the defense for the Timberwolves, holding the high-powered Suns offense to 95 points, having their big three. They still had a great game. Kevin Durant had 30. Beal and Booker combined for about 30 as well. When you can hold their big three to 60 points in total, it's a recipe for success, especially when Anthony Edwards puts up a near 30-point triple-double. 9 rebounds, 6 assists, 33 points. That defense is tough to handle. It really is. And every single home team won this weekend, so I don't want to sit here and overreact and be like, oh, these series are over for everyone. I think the Suns absolutely can bounce back. We talk about a team with Kevin Durant. We talk about a team with Devin Booker. We talk about a team with Bradley Beal. Any team with all three of those guys is going to be able on any given night to outscore you, just to simply outshoot and outscore you and outpace you. And they're going to be a tough out. But the Timberwolves, if they can continue to play lockdown defense like they did against these guys, it's going to be a nightmare matchup. The Timberwolves played a really, really great game. And I know they're really good at home, 30-11 at home, one of the best home records in the entire league. But still, I think the Suns will be able to put up more of a fight. We'll figure that out in game 2 when they match up. But right now, the old adage, defense wins championships, is ahead in that series. And I'm really curious to see, especially with the new NBA, more shifting focus to offense. Defense is harder and harder. It's rare to see these stalwart defensive teams beat out these incredible high-powered offense teams. So we'll take a look. I'm curious. It's kind of a battle of philosophies in this one. I think the Timberwolves still are going to pull this out, but it is going to be a tough series. I think that one is going to go quite a long way. Heading into the Western Conference games yesterday, the biggest shocker to me of the entire day, and it's not that they won, the Clippers destroying the Mavericks, and it's not that surprising to me that they won, right? Because the Clippers are, and have been, a very stacked team. You have James Harden, you have Paul George, you have Russell Westbrook. The shocking part is this is without Kawhi Leonard. And they're still able to win this game by 20 points without Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi Leonard is your number one star on a team that is star-studded. Being able to still dominate without a guy like Kawhi Leonard shows how scary the Clippers can be as a team. Now, the Clippers don't always play like this. Don't expect James Harden to put up 30 points every night. But they dominated on the inside. Ivan Zubac, he had a huge game down low. You know, he was able to dominate Gafford, who is still a little bit of an undersized center, but they made that trade for him. You know, in 33 minutes, he puts up 25 points. He's plus 15 in the plus minus, which is really, really good. I know plus minus isn't everything, but it's a big indicator, especially in a blowout, of who was a very effective player on both ends of the court. You know, 15 boards, 11 defensive boards, and 20 points, almost a 20-20 double-double. He keeps dominating on the inside. The Mavericks aren't going to stand much of a chance. And it doesn't sound like Kawhi's injury is that bad. I could be wrong. I haven't seen many updates other than what the surprise was to me that he wasn't even playing. But he is seemingly going to be ready for at least game 3. I have no idea exactly what the injury history is with excuse me, with him there. But if they can keep this up without him, and they've shown that they're a team to watch out for with this performance against one of the hottest teams in the NBA currently, MVP candidate in Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving together, who both put up 30 points. It wasn't like they shut down the big stars of the other team. Luka put up 33, Kyrie put up 31. It was a great showing for them. They had great games personally, but the rest of the team wasn't there to show up. And I mean, you take a look at the bench, you had, almost the entire roster, all but one player check into the game for at least a minute. Now, a couple of those were garbage time minutes. 4 of those guys only played a minute at the end of the game, but you have nobody on the bench scoring more than 6 points. You only get outside of your top 2 guys, you only get 30 points. You get 34 points you get 64 points from your top guys, and then 11 from PJ Washington. It's not a recipe for success. If PJ Washington, if Daniel Gafford is only putting up 3 points, playing 14 minutes, if you have a starter putting up 0 points, it's not going to go well. And the Clippers, all credit to them, they shut them down on defense. Their offense was incredibly efficient. You're shooting 50% from 3. That's not a sustainable number, but Harden hits 6 threes. Paul George hits 4. You have 3 starters over 20 points, 4 in double digits, and 5 players total. As Russell Westbrook off the bench also got to 13 points. It's very impressive showing by the Clippers. I was very impressed by what they were able to do yesterday, how thoroughly they were able to dominate a team like the Mavericks, who coming into the playoffs, like I said, were one of the hottest teams in the entire sport. The final Western Conference team, just want to take a look at real quick, and this was probably the best game of the entire first games in all these series, the Pelicans and the Thunder. The 1-seed Thunder hosting their first playoff team with this new look team. They've been in the play-ins for the last couple years. They finally put it all together this year with Shea and Chet and Jalen Williams and Lou Dort and all these guys. Their defense was what really stuck out to me. Chet Holmgren has 5 blocks, a whole bunch of huge plays down the stretch. Lou Dort shuts down Brandon Ingram for most of the game. Brandon Ingram had to make a lot of tough shots. I mean, he was pretty much all game. Jonas Valanciunas was dominating down low on the glass. He's just bigger and more physical than Chet, so there's not a lot that Chet can do. But Chet was in the game really making a difference outside of that. He wasn't just, even though he was getting a little bullied on the board, he was able to adjust his game, make a difference. I mean, he hit the first jumper of the game. It was a 3-pointer to open the swing. He had a huge block to set up a Shea Gilgeous-Alexander and one that put the game away for good. It was a very impressive showing for him. Shea puts up 28 points, and if you were watching that game, you go and watch it. He looks so smooth out there on the court. There's not a lot of players that make it look as easy as he does. Drives the lane, taking tough bumps. Almost every one of his shots, when he took them, it looked easy because he was able to get around his defender. He was able to get to that open space. Now, he made some tough shots, don't get me wrong. That and one at the end was a very tough, clutch shot that he made. But he makes that game look so easy. He's a natural-born scorer, and he has the ability in the clutch time, as we saw as the game came down to the final possession, to make that difference. CJ McCollum had a chance to win the game. Had the ball with 14 seconds. They went ISO ball with CJ McCollum, which isn't a bad option. He had a really good game, made tough shots down the stretch, but he was getting doubled. He lost the ball a bit, and really or maybe they did, but he didn't pass it out. I would have liked to see him with 14 seconds Zion play rather than have CJ dribble it out and hit a shot. But I'm not the coaching staff. That's a decision for them to make. That's just what I thought taking a look at that game. It was a great game. That was the best game of the entire slate so far. Wonderful stuff from two really good young teams. It sucks that Zion is out because I want to see a Zion versus Chet playoffs. They both play very different styles, and the Pelicans are a different team with him out there. But the defense is what really impressed me from both of these teams. Hopefully the rest of the games in this series are like this. Again, I think the Thunder are a better team. I think the Pelicans aren't going to be able to get much done against them. But if they can play like this, if they had, this was a winnable game for them. They had a couple missed opportunities. They threw the ball away a couple times, going cross court and in fast breaks. But this was a very, very good, very young teams, and I'm very excited for the rest of this series. Coming up in our second segment, up next, we're going to break down the Eastern Conference games, talk about some of the big takeaways and surprises from those, some big performances, and what the future of those series looks like. So stick around. We will be right back on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient. Hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing. Sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown. Get in my way and to be put down. It ain't replaced all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the news it fits. I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift. Oh.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jeremy Lapidus. If you were just tuning in, we've just broken down Game 1 of the Western Conference side of the NBA playoffs. Again, the home team won every single game on Game 1, so there were no teams on upset alert yet. In this segment, we're going to break down the Eastern Conference games, go through the big surprises, the big storylines coming out of the Eastern Conference after Game 1 weekend. But before we do, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Leave a tip or donation with the website that is on the screen right now. Leave a message with that tip or donation. It'll pop up on the bottom of the screen there for you, me, and everybody else watching around the world to see. You can control what we talk about here on this show. All you need to do is leave a tip or donation at gsmcpodcast.net. Appreciate anything that you do give. Once again, that link is gsmcpodcast.net. Appreciate you guys for listening. We'll be right, But let's go right back to the NBA, breaking down the Eastern Conference side of things. The NBA Eastern Conference Game 1, and we'll go ahead and start right back on Saturday, the first game of the playoffs between the Cavs and the Magic. This 4-5 matchup where the Cavs basically chose their opponent on that last game of the season, something that, if they lose, could backfire spectacularly on them. This game was really decided by the shooting. You know, when you have a team in Orlando that shoots 32% from the field, 21% from three, 63% from the free throw line, as opposed to a team in the Cavs who are shooting 44% from the field, only 26% from three, but they did shoot 81% from the line. It's going to be a difference. And that's really the 14-point swings you see there. You know, you have just a team that was more efficient, better at making shots. What my big takeaway from this game is Jarrett Allen down low has been able to establish himself. That was the biggest takeaway from their last postseason when they were unable to get past the Knicks. They could not have established that physical force down low, but Allen has been able to do that, at least in Game 1. You know, 16 points, 18 rebounds, Evan Mobley had 3 blocks. You have these guys that are establishing an identity on the inside, and that is really what I said, would, at least in my opinion, is going to decide this series. Whichever team can control the boards, whichever team can control it down low, is going to win this series. And for this game, you look at the rebounding numbers. It was it was 40 to 54. 14 rebound difference, 14-point game. Now, it's not always going to look as pretty as that, but you can see the kind of correlation between rebounding, controlling down low, and winning this series. I think both of these teams are pretty evenly matched. You have some star-studded people at the top, and both of these teams are relatively deep. Both of these teams go 4-5 deep. Bench points are going to be huge in this series. Magic had 17 bench points last night, or on Saturday, and the Cavs had 14, so relatively similar there. But Donovan Mitchell puts up 30. Donovan Mitchell, by far the highest scorer. The next highest scorer, Paolo Banchero, who had a great game in his playoff debut, putting up nearly a triple-double, 24, 7, and 5. Great game for him. He did have 9 turnovers, though, which you have to cut down on the turnovers if you're going to win the game. That is brutal. They did win the turnover margin by 5, but when you have your star, the guy who has the ball in his hand all the time, turning the ball over 9 times, it's not a great look, and it's going to be tough to win. So if Paolo Banchero can clean up those turnovers, I think the Magic aren't going to shoot 30% from the field every night. They're not going to be that inefficient. So their guys are going to start shooting. Gary Harris isn't going to go 0 for 5 from 3 every single night. So the Cavs can't count on this performance and say this is how it's going to be all series long. It's going to be a tough battle, but I do believe that whoever controls the inside is going to control it. A great fun game. Another kind of close one. It wasn't really, that close, but 14 points compared to some of the blowouts we saw on Sunday isn't that bad. And the next game, Knicks 76ers, is probably my biggest surprise of the first round. You have a Knicks team without Julius Randle going up against Joel Embiid having 76ers team, a 76ers team that with Joel Embiid has been killing it. And you take a look at the Knicks team and you say, oh, they won this game by 7. Jalen Brunson must have had an incredible game, and he didn't really have that great of a game. You have Jalen Brunson. He did put up 22 points. He had 5 turnovers, 7 rebounds, 7 assists, but he was incredibly inefficient. 8 for 26 from the field, 1 of 6 from 3. I mean, most games, if you go 8 for 26 against a team with Joel Embiid, it's not going to be good. It's not gonna help you out there. But they just outplayed them. None of these the Knicks didn't really play that great as compared to the 76ers, at least when you look at it on paper. But having Josh Hart out there, going incredibly efficient, 22 points, 5 for 12. He had some huge minutes, a double-double from him. And Joel Embiid not seemingly being his healthiest, he did put up 29, but he wasn't dominant on the glass like he was supposed to be. Josh Hart out-rebounded him. And I know that's not a one-for-one comparison, but Joel Embiid was supposed to be the difference maker. He was supposed to be the guy that's just dominating, being unable to be stopped. But, he shoots 8 for 22 from the field. He's been kind of locked down. Now, that's not the only reason that they lost this game. You have you shoot 30% from 3. You need to shoot a little bit better. Especially when the Knicks shoot 45% from 3. They hit 16 3-pointers, just a barrage of 3-pointers. You go all the way down the roster. McBride off the bench has 5 3-pointers and 21 points. That's not something you can count on every single night, but huge minutes for him off the bench, coming in and spelling some of these stars of the Knicks. And if they can play like this every night, they're going to give the Sixers a really tough series. I still think the Sixers will be able to pull this out, and I don't want to overreact too much to this, but the Knicks looked really solid this go around. Heading on to Sunday's slate, the first game, and the game that I was really excited for, didn't quite go the same way that I thought it would, but the Bucks taking on the Pacers. The Pacers just shot themselves out of the arena. You have, and the Bucks, they did everything right, for, at least in the first half, shooting-wise. We talk about a performance where Damian Lillard has 35 points in the first half, doesn't score a single point for the rest of the game. Damian Lillard was on a heater to half. Look at those, he was insane. He ends the game with the same 35 points. Like I said, he doesn't score a single point in the second half. But, you have Bobby Portis and Chris Middleton with double-doubles. Damian Lillard hits 6 threes, all of them in the first half. And it's kind of demoralizing for a Pacers team that just was not shooting the ball well. I mean, they live and die by the three. They took 38 of them, and they only made 8. So they shot 21% from the field, from three, 39% from the field. This is not the kind of performance you want. Tyrese Halliburton only has 9 points in 38 minutes. He is doing other stuff to help out, 8 assists, 7 rebounds. Pascal Siakam has a double-double, but they just could not make a three to save their lives, and that really was their downfall. They had to push in the second half. They dominated that third quarter, made a little bit of a comeback, and then they just weren't. They were just out of gas. They weren't able to come all the way back and take game one after Damian Lillard. If Damian Lillard disappears in a half like that again, especially without Giannis, it's not going to go the same way. This Pacers team is good. They just had a bad shooting night. And I expect that to switch coming up in their next game. I really do still believe in this Pacers team. They play again tomorrow on NBA TV. But this should be a fun series. Like I said, it's going to be a high-paced, high-scoring series. The first game didn't quite go that way. And then the final Eastern Conference team, the final game of the first round of the playoffs, the Celtics took on the Heat, and they just dominated the entire way. They started off the game on like a 10-0 run, and they never looked back. I don't think the Heat led even once. Jason Tatum had a triple-double, 23, 10, and 10. The Heat made a push in that fourth quarter, but at that point the Celtics were up by like 40 points, so it didn't really matter. Without Jimmy Butler, it's a tough task to take down a team like the Celtics. And I know that they are the Celtic killers. The Heat are sometimes seem to be. At least they have been for the last couple seasons. But without your leader in Jimmy Butler, it's going to look like this. And I don't think the Heat stand much of a chance. There wasn't a lot of huge takeaways from that game. The Celtics are really good. They're really good. And Jason Tatum is really good. He had himself a great game. And they just dominated the Heat. There wasn't really a lot of positive takeaways for the Heat. So we'll have to see if they can bounce back. The Heat have that Heat culture. So I'm never going to count them out completely, because even without Jimmy Butler, they have guys like Bam Adebayo. They have Jaime Jaquez Jr., who had a pretty solid game in his own right. And Tyler Hero, who struggled a little bit, but can step up in those playoff moments and the shooting moments. This Heat team, I don't think will put out that bad of a performance again, but I think the Celtics team is just better. It's not that close, especially without Jimmy Butler. And there's a question of if he'll be able to come back for the second round if they make it there, but they have to make it there first. They can't just assume they're there, and especially in a team as formidable as the Celtics is your opponent, it's not going to be easy. But yeah, in our third segment coming up, we are going to transition out of the NBA into the NFL. There was some big trade news coming out of the NFL today. We will break that down, what that means for the draft coming up in just a couple days on Thursday for these quarterback needy teams, and a quarterback trade that happened earlier today. So stick around for that. We'll be right back on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jeremy Lapidus. If you are just tuning in, we've just finished breaking down the NBA slate, the game ones. We talked about Eastern and Western conferences, the Lakers, the Knicks, and all the big surprises that came alongside of them. In this segment right here, we're going to talk about the big trade that occurred today in the NFL. Could have huge implications for the draft on multiple teams, so talking about what that means for the future of the NFL. But before we do, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Leave a tip or donation with a message in it. It'll pop up on the bottom of the screen there for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. You can choose what we talk about here on our show. All you need to do is go to the link on the screen right now. We'll have a little discussion about what you have to say. We appreciate everybody for tuning in and listening, and we appreciate anything that you do give. But like I was saying, we are going to talk about Zach Wilson being traded. The first big move of the draft cycle, at least of the draft week. Zach Wilson and the Jets were not getting along all offseason, and they finally found a trade partner for him in the Denver Broncos. The Denver Broncos quarterback room now has Zach Wilson, Ben DiNucci, Jared Stidham. Now, if I'm a Broncos fan and I'm looking at my season, you don't give up too much for him. It's a pick swap. You're trading a 6th for a 7th round pick and splitting salary. So it's not like you're really giving up much for a guy in Zach Wilson. That has shown flashes. If you're a Broncos fan, at least me personally, if I'm a Broncos fan, I'm not happy. I'm a little concerned about this because there's been rumors all offseason that the Broncos have been attempting to trade up, get a quarterback, get a J.J. McCarthy, go get to that number 3 overall pick and get Jaden Daniels or Drake May or whoever the Commanders don't select at 2. There was a report today that came out of the Giants and the Broncos were both trying to get those picks, which it's going to take a lot. But now the Broncos go out and they get Zach Wilson, and this could signal a whole lot of things. One, Zach Wilson has shown promise. Like I said, it's not a lot of promise, but if you get a guy like that in your building, maybe he just needs a change of scenery. Maybe he needs to get away from New York and he can blossom in Denver. Now, I'm not too certain on that, and I hope that the Broncos don't expect to go into next season with Zach Wilson as their starting quarterback, because we've seen that before and we've seen how it works out, and the answer is not very pretty. It does not work out very well. It's not a very, very good-looking offense with Zach Wilson there. He has, not the greatest history, but you put him in a quarterback room now with 2 other guys who don't have a lot of starting experience. All of them have started games in the league before, but they don't have that much starting experience. It's not a very intimidating quarterback room. So if you're a Broncos fan, are you still looking at drafting a quarterback in the first round? Now, I'm not a Broncos fan, so I don't know exactly what they're thinking here, but if I am the Broncos GM, I'm fine taking a swing on Zach Wilson. Like I said, he's shown some promise. But I don't want to get to a situation where he has to be my starter. And I would still draft a quarterback in the first. I'd look to number 3, number 4, number 5, number 6. Go and trying to get a guy like J.J. McCarthy that Sean Payton really likes him. I don't like J.J. McCarthy. I don't think he'll do well in Denver, and I think he fits right into that tier with all 3 of those guys now, if the Broncos are to draft him. I think he could work well in a place like Minnesota. But if you can get up to 3, and you can get a Jaden Daniels, you can get a Drake May, that would be huge. And if I'm the Broncos, even though I now have Zach Wilson, I'm treating him as a backup. I'm not happy with any 3 of those guys coming in and being my starter. As much as I love Ben DiNucci, JMU grad, represent the Dukes here, he's not a guy that I want to be my NFL starting quarterback heading into the season. Now, he could come out and win the job. Stidham could come out and win the job. Zach Wilson could come out and win the job. But if I'm looking at that quarterback competition and I'm the Broncos, you just a couple seasons ago felt like you were a quarterback away. You go out and you get Russell Wilson and it all falls apart. It is a shame. You don't want to be stuck in that cycle that the Broncos have been in trying to find a quarterback since Peyton Manning left. Since really forever. Broncos kind of still have a good roster. Kind of starts out. They aren't really in a position to compete anymore. Last year's roster was so much better than it is this year. But the draft is right around the corner, and I'm very interested to see what the Broncos do now that they have traded for another quarterback. I don't know if this means that they're withdrawing from the J.J. McCarthy sweepstakes, feeling like, hey, we're not getting him unless we trade up, and I don't know if they want to trade up. There's lots of different other options. You can still go get a guy like Bo Nix later on in like the 2nd round or the 3rd round. Maybe Michael Penix falls to the 2nd round. I've heard people saying that maybe 6 quarterbacks go in this draft. I want to caution against quarterbacks going because with Zach Wilson being traded, there is now only one quarterback from the 2021 draft that is still on the original team. 2021's not that long ago, and you look at the quarterback conversations you have that top tier, top of the class guy in Trevor Lawrence, Caleb Williams, and then you have the rest of these guys. They're getting hype, and it's not the exact same. I think class is slightly better. Just now on the Steelers. Mac Jones now on the Jets, backing up Trevor Lawrence. Zach Wilson on the Broncos. On the on the Cowboys. This quarterback class that was prophesized to be one of the best quarterback classes in quite some time has fallen apart. So I just want to take that class, and when we're looking at this class, as a word of caution, saying, hey, this is this doesn't mean we don't know how to evaluate quarterbacks. We don't. If someone knew how to evaluate quarterbacks 100% of the time, they would be a bajillionaire. Some NFL team would pay them all of the money, and good for that person. But nobody knows how to evaluate quarterbacks 100% of the time. There's ways you can look for it, but we don't want to sit here and be 100% in this class. There's been rumors, like I said, tweets out today from NFL Network folks saying, right now I think 6 quarterbacks are going in the first round, and I think that's way too many. Way too many. That means you're getting down to a guy like Spencer Rattler. You're getting your top 3. You're getting J.J. McCarthy. You're getting Bo Nix. You're getting Michael Penix. And then after the first round, there's just Spencer Rattler left. There's no reason why most of those guys should go in the first round. Now, I understand if you want to take a gamble on a late first round on one of them, but it doesn't make a lot of sense. It's not good. Quarterbacks are a premium. There's a lot of quarterback teams out there, and not quarterbacks in this draft to really go grab. It's going to be a really interesting quarterback draft because any number of things could happen. It could be a wild trade fest, especially in the top 10 with all this quarterback talent and all this rumored quarterback talent going in the first round. So I'm very, very curious to see exactly how this goes in the draft. I think the Jets just needed to get rid of Zach Wilson, and they were able to get any value. I'm surprised that he didn't just go to waivers, but you're just moving up 30 spots in the draft and getting rid of Zach Wilson. good trade on both sides. You're not giving up anything for Zach Wilson if you're the Broncos, and like I said, he's shown some flashes, he's shown some potential, so it's not out of the question that he could maybe. But yeah, stick around. Coming up in our fourth and final segment, we are going to transition out of the NFL, move into baseball, talk a little bit about a rookie pitcher that has been tearing the league up against some of the best opponents in the league, and some other pitching staffs that have just been on fire recently. So stick around. We'll be right back on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows. Available everywhere podcasts are found.
Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jeremy Lapidus. If you were just tuning in, we just finished going over the big NFL trade news happening today with Zach Wilson being traded from the Jets to the Broncos for a 6th and 7th round pick swap. So the Broncos moved into the 7th round in exchange for a 6th round pick, and they get Zach Wilson. Not a bad deal for either side. Interesting implications, and an interesting opportunity to take a look back at the 2021 NFL quarterback class that is now scattered to the winds across the NFL. And the similarities. And in our first two segments, we broke down Game 1 of the NBA playoffs. We talked about the Eastern and Western Conferences, the big surprises, the Lakers and the Knicks, and their games, the Knicks' surprise victory over the 76ers and Joel Embiid, and much more in our first two segments. But like I said, in this segment, we are transitioning into baseball. There is a rookie pitcher who has been phenomenal, just really, really good all season long. I guess he's only had 2 starts, but against 2 really, really tough opponents. Really, really great lineups. So we'll talk about him and other pitching news in the MLB that's happened recently over the last week or so. But before we do, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Leave a tip or donation with a message. That message will pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. We'll have a little discussion about what you have to say. That message, you can control what we talk about here on the show. Just need to leave a message at that link, gsmcpodcast.net. We appreciate anything that you do give. And we appreciate you, leaving a donation and spending your time with us today. But like I was saying, we're going to talk a little bit about baseball. And we're going to talk about Mitchell Parker. Mitchell Parker has been a revelation for the Washington Nationals. A Washington Nationals team that has not been very good all season, not expected to be very good, but one of their headliners, Josiah Gray, goes down with shoulder inflammation. Another injury to pitchers. This one hasn't been as catastrophic as the rest of them. Goes on the 15-day IL, and Mitchell Parker, the number 21 prospect in the system, gets called up to replace him. His first game, no tall task, going against maybe the best lineup in all of baseball in the Los Angeles Dodgers. And what does he do? He opens up his MLB career by striking out Mookie Betts. It's a pretty good way to start your career. Gets a win against a Dodgers lineup including 3 MVPs, former MVPs, Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, Shohei Ohtani. this is an incredibly deep and incredibly strong lineup, and he breezes through it. His next start isn't any easier. He goes to the dynasty-esque Houston Astros. They come to visit DC, and he mows through them. 7 shutout innings, just dominating the baseball field. He, in 2 starts, to start out his career, has now a 1.5 ERA. He's 2-0 against the Astros and the Dodgers. He's gotten 12 innings, only given up 7 hits and 2 runs, and he struck out 12. He has been insane. You take a look at his numbers and you try to figure out if it's sustainable or not, because 2 starts is not a big enough sample size to say this guy is the next thing. But he's been pretty much league average on a lot of the advanced stats, or better than league average on a lot of them. You go take a look at his batting averages against, his batting average on balls in play. It's a little lower than the league average. It's at 226. The league average is 291. So he's getting a little bit lucky with his ball luck, and he's been getting hit a little bit harder than you would like. His hard hit percentage, his percentage of balls that are coming into the field of play at over 95 miles per hour, it's at 48.4%, so a little higher than you'd like. The MLB average for that is 38.9, but the rest of it looks really good. He's getting a lot of people to ground out, short at bats. He goes, 7 innings in 80 pitches in his second start against the Astros. He's been really, really efficient, striking out 12 guys in 12 innings, and just getting some weak contact. You'd like to see more more weak contact. Like I said, that hard hit percentage is a little bit concerning to see if it is to see if it's actually sustainable. But no walks, 12 strikeouts in your first 12 innings of your career, coming up against some of the best competition in all of baseball. Just there's an all-star cast of hitters that he's faced. I already went through a couple: Shohei Ohtani, Freddie Freeman, Mookie Betts, Jose Altuve, Yordan Alvarez. That's just five of the 18 guys that he's faced in his first 2 starts, and he's dominated. He's struck out all of them, every single one. He has been insane start to his rookie year. I don't know how sustainable it is. I don't think it's going to be at this level the whole time. But I do think he absolutely has earned a spot on the roster once Josiah Gray gets healthy and can come back. We're going to see a few more starts out of him. Maybe he'll get some easier competition. We'll have to see exactly what happens then. But very encouraging to see a guy like him come out of nowhere, really. Like I said, the number 1 prospect in the national system, so not super highly touted. He comes out, and it's great to see for a team in rebuild like the Washington Nationals to be able to have a guy like that come out and really dominate the way he is. The other big pitching news that has been going around the MLB is the Philadelphia Phillies and their pitchers being dominant on this last homestand. The Phillies go 8-2 in their last homestand, and in back-to-back games, their pitchers take no-hitters into the 7th inning or later. 1 7-inning no-hitter, 1 8-inning no-hitter, and the Phillies are back. They had a little bit of a slow start to the season. They were playing some good opponents, but now they're 14-6. They're back near the top of the league, challenging the Braves for the division lead again. If the Phillies are pitching like they are, this is their best homestand in almost 10 years. 8-2 on their homestand is nothing to scoff at all. Very, very impressive for the Phillies. It's still early in the season. They're getting their bearings. Their hitters are starting to hit again, and their pitching is shaping up. If they can this is an insane level to be pitching at all season long, and you can't expect that. But the Phillies have the pitchers to be able to do that. It's very impressive what they have been able to accomplish in their short run so far this season, but more to come. with the Phillies. But yeah, lots to see. Lots to see in baseball. We'll do power rankings tomorrow. We'll have a mock draft on Thursday, day of the draft for football, and we will keep you updated on the NHL and the NBA playoffs all week. We're going to do an NHL segment tomorrow, breaking down all the game ones, and keep an eye out on any major news in the NBA from today. Go watch your sports. Lots of stuff going on in sports this week. Too much to talk about in just an hour. But anyway, thank you everybody so much for tuning in to today's episode of Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I have been your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Appreciate all of you guys for tuning in and watching. We'll be right back, same time, same place tomorrow. Talk about all the biggest news in sports. Have a great rest of your day. I'll see you then. Bye-bye.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of